For 50 days, no one in Medina would speak to him. Not strangers, not neighbours, not even eventually his own wife. He still walked to the mosque, every single prayer, without missing one. He still stood beside the Prophet ﷺ himself, close enough to hear him breathe. And still, not one greeting was returned to him. Not once, in 50 days, from a city that had known his name his entire life. He would offer his salam and then stand there afterward, uncertain, actually wondering whether the Prophet's ﷺ lips had moved at all in answer, or whether he had only imagined it, the way a starving man imagines the smell of food. This was Ka'b ibn Malik, radiallahu an, and the astonishing part of his story is not what was done to him. It's what he could have avoided with one single lie and refused to say. Ka'b was not an outsider. He was wealthy, strong, respected, a man who had stood with the Prophet ﷺ at the pledge of al-Aqaba before Islam had any victories to its name. He had missed only one battle before this, and for that one, no blame had ever fallen on anyone. The fighting at Badr had found the Muslims almost by accident. Every other expedition, he says himself, he had never once stayed behind. Then came Tabuk. The Prophet ﷺ announced the expedition further in advance than usual, in the heat of the year, against the distant power of Rome. A campaign serious enough that he wanted every capable man prepared well ahead of time, rather than gathering hastily the way smaller raids sometimes did. Ka'b had every means to prepare. 2 camels, ready. Nothing standing in his way, no illness, no debt, no genuine obstacle of any kind that he could later point to. And still, he kept saying to himself, tomorrow. I can still catch up tomorrow. He says it plainly, without excuse-making, exactly as he remembered it happening. I kept delaying until the people had truly readied themselves, and Allah's Messenger ﷺ and the Muslims with him had set out, and I had still not prepared anything at all. By the time he considered going after them, it was already too late to catch up honestly. So he stayed. While he stayed behind, others stayed too. 2 men in particular, whose situations mirrored his own, closely enough that their names are always remembered alongside his. Hilal ibn Umayyah and Murara ibn Rabi, both respected men of Medina, both without any real excuse either, both facing the same reckoning when the Prophet ﷺ returned. But around them, other men who had also failed to march came forward with a different strategy entirely. Some had genuine excuses, others had none at all and simply lied, swearing oaths to the Prophet ﷺ that were accepted at face value. The sincerity of their hearts left as a matter between themselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unexamined, unpunished, closed. Ka'b watched them get away with it, one after another, in the very same sitting where he would soon be asked to explain himself. And when the Prophet ﷺ returned from Tabuk and the moment came for Ka'b to explain himself, he had every opportunity to do exactly what those other men had done. Offer an oath, offer regret, be believed, and be finished with it in a single sentence. He says the temptation was real. When I heard that he was on his way back, he later recalled, I was consumed by distress, and I began to think of false excuses, telling myself, how will I escape his displeasure tomorrow? I sought the help of every wise person close to me in the matter, turning the problem over in my mind again and again, looking for a version of events that would sound believable without being entirely true. But when the moment actually arrived, when Ka'b was standing in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and every excuse he had rehearsed on the long walk there was finally within reach, close enough to simply speak aloud, Every one of those false explanations left him at once. He says it himself. I knew that I could never escape this by telling something untrue. So he told the truth instead. O Messenger of Allah, he said, I have no excuse. I was never stronger or more able than when I stayed behind from you. No oath, no invented illness, no invented delay. Just the plain truth, offered with nothing to soften the landing, in front of a man he had every reason to fear disappointing. The Prophet ﷺ said, as for this one, he has told the truth. Then he told Ka'b to rise and wait for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to decide what would happen to him. And then came the order. The Prophet ﷺ instructed the entire community of Madinah not to speak to Ka'b, nor to two other men in the same position until further notice. No punishment was announced, no sentence, no timeline, just silence, handed down from everyone he had known his whole life, all at once. Ka'b describes what that silence actually felt like from the inside, and it is worth hearing in something close to his own words. The earth, with all its vastness, felt too narrow for me. My own soul felt as though it had closed in on itself. Consider what that means for a man who was, by his own account, the strongest and youngest of the three. He was not physically broken. He was not without resources. What had closed in on him was something else entirely. The particular suffocation of being fully present in a place that has collectively decided to look through you. The other two men accepted it by staying home and weeping, disappearing from the ordinary rhythm of the city entirely. Ka'b did not. He kept showing up. He walked to every prayer, on time, without exception. He stood among the people, shoulder to shoulder in the rows, the same rows he had always stood in. He walked through the markets of Madinah exactly as he always had, greeting whoever passed, the way you greet people in a city you have lived in your entire life. Nobody greeted him back. Day after day, the same silence, delivered by faces he had known since childhood. He would come specifically to where the Prophet ﷺ sat after prayer and offer his salam. And then he would watch closely, trying to tell whether the Prophet's ﷺ lips had moved in response or not. He was never certain. He would pray near him, stealing glances, and Ka'b noticed something particular. If he was occupied in his own prayer, the Prophet ﷺ would turn his face toward him. The instant Ka'b turned to look back, the Prophet ﷺ would look away. 50 days of that. Not open hostility, something quieter and harder to carry. Proximity without any of the warmth that used to come with it. A man could not have designed a more precise instrument for measuring exactly how much of his old life had been built on other people's regard, and how much was left once that regard was withdrawn. Then, into that silence, came an offer that no ordinary punishment would ever have produced. A letter arrived from the Ghassanid king, a Christian ruler on the border of Syria, wrapped in silk the way correspondence between rulers often was. Word of Ka'b's treatment had apparently traveled even that far. A Muslim of standing, cast out by his own community for reasons a foreign king had no particular interest in weighing fairly. The letter told him plainly, "Come to us instead. We will honor you in a way your own people currently will not." It was, in its way, a genuine way out. A wealthy, capable man, publicly humiliated by his own city, being offered comfort and status elsewhere by someone with no stake in Medina's judgment of him at all. Ka'b did not hesitate over it, the way he had hesitated over the false excuses months earlier. He understood immediately what it actually was. A test wrapped inside a rescue, arriving at the precise moment his isolation was at its most unbearable. He walked to the oven and he burned it. 10 days later, the isolation deepened further. A messenger came from the Prophet ﷺ with new instructions. Ka'b was to keep away even from his own wife, though it was left unclear whether this meant complete separation or simply distance within the same household. Ka'b took no chances with the ambiguity. He sent her to her family himself, unwilling to risk being the one who had misunderstood what was asked of him. 40 days in, alone in every sense that mattered, Ka'b climbed the mountain of Salah outside Madinah, not to escape, but simply because the walls of the city had become unbearable to sit inside any longer. Every familiar street now a reminder of a greeting that would not come. 10 more days passed there, or near there, the same as all the others. Then, on the morning of the 50th day after the Fajr prayer, sitting on the roof of one of the houses in that same suffocating stillness he had carried for 7 weeks, Ka'b heard a voice. Someone had climbed to the top of Salah itself, the same mountain where Ka'b himself had gone to escape the weight of the city 10 days earlier, and was calling out at the loudest volume a human voice could carry, so that the sound would travel across every rooftop in Madinah. O Ka'b ibn Malik, rejoice! He fell down in prostration on the spot, right there on the roof, before another single word could reach him. He understood, before any explanation followed, exactly what that sentence meant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had accepted his repentance. The news moved through Madinah faster than Ka'b could walk. People began arriving in groups to congratulate him, one after another, all the way to the mosque itself. The same streets that had offered him nothing but silence for 50 days, now filled with voices calling out his name, wanting to be near him. And as Ka'b entered the mosque, he saw the Prophet ﷺ sitting among the companions, his face, Ka'b says, shining with joy the way it always did in moments of happiness, so that you could recognize it instantly. And Talha ibn Ubaidillah radiallahu anhu rose to his feet, hurried across the room and embraced him. Ka'b never forgot that no one else among the Muhajirin stood up for him that day except Talha. He said so himself decades later and never once let it be forgotten. Now sit with what this story is actually asking of you. Ka'b was not punished for a crime with no way out. He was punished for telling the truth when a lie, the same lie other men had already gotten away with, that very same week, in front of the very same Prophet ﷺ, was sitting right there, fully available to him, and would very likely have worked exactly as it had worked for them. 50 days of total isolation was the price of honesty, when dishonesty was cheaper, faster, and already proven to succeed. There was no guarantee when he chose the truth that it would end in a mountaintop voice calling his name. He made that choice with no promise attached to it at all. Only the certainty that he could not live with having lied, whatever the cost of not lying turned out to be. And still, when he tells his own story decades later, blind, guided by his son, dictating what would become one of the most detailed first-person accounts preserved from that entire generation, he never once frames those 50 days as the punishment. He frames the truth itself as what saved him. Because the men who lied that day were left exactly where they stood. Their secret kept, their excuse accepted, nothing resolved, nothing redeemed, only postponed, the way debts are postponed rather than paid. Ka'b, by refusing that same shortcut, walked through the hardest 50 days of his life and came out the other side with something the liars never got the chance to receive at all. A voice on a mountain, telling him by name that he had been forgiven. Not merely tolerated, forgiven, and told so directly, In a way, the ones who lied would never be told about their own hidden matter, because it remained forever between themselves and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, unspoken and unresolved. The question this story leaves behind is not complicated, even if living it is. When the easier story is already available to you, already believable, already proven to work on other people, what does it cost you to tell the true one instead? Ka'b ibn Malik knew the answer before anyone told him. 50 days. And he paid it anyway. Wallahu alam. And Allah knows best.